Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Grand Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Grand Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Grand Group by emailing thegran, that's G-R-A-N, group, at edinarealty.com, or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Grand Group with Edina Realty, 7-time Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners. On this episode, Dan and Hoges recap the Twins' 3-game series against the Boston Red Sox. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win. I am Dan Thompson. With me today is Andrew Hoganson. The streak is over, but it's time to maybe start a new one, I guess, and maybe get a new sausage. Hoges, I think I'm ready for the death of the sausage, at least.
Yeah, I liked it. I was curious if it was going to be one of those things that was going to stick around for the rest of the season, although Rocco did say they've got a fridge full of them, that they're ready to go. But yeah, I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty bummed. I mean, A, I just wanted the Twins to win 13 in a row, and B, I wanted to have an undefeated little podcast stint here. So it hurts today, but all in all, when you look at it, the whole picture, this is a pretty good series against a decent team, so I'm glad that they came away with 2 out of 3.
Exactly. Another series win. That's 4 series wins in a row, which we talk about. That's really the important thing. You want to win the series, which, looking ahead here, so they play the Mariners here for 4, and then it's 3 with the Jays, 3 with the Yankees, 3 with the Guardians, 3 with the Nationals, 3 with the Rangers, and then 4 with the Royals. May looks a whole lot harder, Hoges. Like, what would you consider a success here throughout this month?
I don't know. I think that this team has shown that it can play with these guys when they start getting a little bit more breaks. I mean, that's basically why they lost today. They didn't get hits when they needed to. Boston did. The win streak showed me that they could do that. I feel good about what they can do in May, but yeah, the competition is definitely going to tick up here a bit for a while.
We should note that 12-game winning streak ties for the second longest in team history. The longest one was a 15-gamer in 1991, and that year ended pretty well. So
it did.
So let's hope that this portends well for the rest of the season. But I think for now, let's go ahead and get into the series recap.
Series recap.
Game 1, the Twins win this 5-2. A good game, a great start out of Chris Paddock. We're going to talk about that in a later segment. The Twins score first in the bottom of the third. Castro doubles, and then Julian singles him in on opposite field. Hit 2 outs later, and then really not much happens until the top of the 7th when Jax has a clean inning, and then the bottom of the 7th, the Twins get 4 runs. Larnach and Santana single. Then Castro bunts with a funny play where Boston's catcher tried to get the out at second, which was bold. But he throws wide, and that allows Martin, who had pinch run, to score. And then a Miranda walk. Kirilloff grounds out at home, but then Julian walks on a pitch count violation by Uwasawa. Have you seen a play like that? In at least in Twins history, I don't remember that.
Nope, not to score a run. Definitely not at all. Honestly, it felt like we were playing the White Sox again in this inning. Like, all of these things that happened were just breaks that the Twins have had throughout this entire streak. It was nice to see them happen again. It was nice to also be playing with a lead. Like, I know we still more or less dominated that White Sox series, but they were behind in every single baseball game, so even getting that run across in the third was nice to see this team be able to play with that instead of having to come from behind.
Also, on that pitch count violation, it was a pretty flagrant violation.
It
wasn't, he seemed to give him a couple extra seconds, almost like when a quarterback is going to snap the ball close to the count, and then you kind of have to look up at the clock and then back. I mean, it was clearly a violation, so that made me feel better about it happening.
Well, you could feel him being like, okay, come on. Throw, yes. Come on, because you don't want to call that there. Like, and no. I think baseball's done a decent job of that, but hey, I'll take it on this side of things.
And then Jeffers has the big hit, a 2-run double, makes it 5-0. And even though Cole Sands is tagged for a couple runs in the top of the 8th, Duran comes in, gets the save for the 9th, and the streak continues into Game 2, Hoges.
Yeah, and I mean, Game 1 was perfect because even Devers is on my fantasy baseball team, so I didn't mind seeing those 2 ribbies there at the end in a game that was mostly out of hand.
Well, in Game 2, he had his moments to really have the big hit for your fantasy team, but he couldn't come through. The Red Sox actually, so they score first in this game. They get 3 hits right away off Pablo Lopez, but then he settled in and he pitched 6 innings, 1 earned run, 5 hits, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts. It was the official Pablo Day. Do you understand how Pablo Day works?
No, not at all, because you guys talked about that before, and I thought it meant the day that he pitches. But then they were like, how did you like your first Pablo Day? And I was like, wait, what? So I truly do not know. I didn't look into it any bit after that. Do you know? Like, what is it? Because he was at home?
I thought it was every home start was Pablo Day.
But he's had to have started at home so far this year, right?
He has.
So
The big yellow jerseys. I mean, it looks cool, but these yellow jerseys feel like jerseys that I'm going to see at a garage sale like 2 summers from now for like $20. So I'm thinking I'm going to wait. I don't know. Are you buying one yet?
No, without a doubt. I have a Hormel hot dog jersey that I wear every once in a while. It feels like that kind of a thing where when you're looking at it, you're like, oh, that's cool. And then you're like, well, when am I ever going to walk around wearing a Wiener Winner shirt?
Well, maybe this is the season now with the sausage.
There you go.
But that reminds me, do you remember as a kid going to the Metrodome and getting like a Dairy Queen hat and having the logo in the front? And I look back at those hats. Those were not very good hats.
No, they were not. They were like when they handed out the Prince jerseys a couple years ago, and like they were literally in threads by like the next day just because of the quality of they were. But yeah, I do not think I fully understand what Pablo Day is. But hey, he pitched great again. Do you feel like this year he's kind of had like a hiccup every single game that he's played in, where he's been pretty dominant, other than like 3 batters? I mean, it happened in the Angels game too.
It feels like he's Joe Ryan a little bit. And then he settles in, and he doesn't feel like he's in tip-top form, and I hope that that's going to work itself out as the weather warms up, because he doesn't look ace material quite like he did last year.
Yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, this game was great. The Twins end up getting another run in the first off of a sacrifice, which was kind of a theme in this game. Kepler hits a homer in the 4th off of a lefty, which is pretty amazing to see him doing that well against left-handed pitching, and Rocco leaving him in, which we'll get to later. And then Correa hits another sacrifice fly in the 6th. I think this is kind of par for the streak again. Like I'm beating it to death, but they got hits and they put the ball in play when they needed to throughout this streak, and they're scoring those runs.
Absolutely, and they add more runs in the 6th with a Castro single. He advances to 2nd and 3rd on wild pitches, of course, during Correa's at bat. And as you mentioned, Correa sac flies him in on a ball that I think Corey Provis was pretty sure was leaving the park the way that he announced it.
So I can't watch, as we've discussed multiple times now, and watching that replay, he did the Dick Bremer for sure. He was up, he was ready. And to be honest, I think that would have been gone if it were August and it were a little bit warmer and the ball's flying a little bit more. But that was kind of an easy out. Like, it was barely kissing that warning track out there.
Well, in any case, it is enough because the Twins make a couple other nice plays. Kepler has an outfield assist in the top of the 7th as Dominic Smith tries to stretch a single to a double. It's a perfect carom, but man, I mean, like, people were praising Max Kepler for his wonderful knowledge of right field. I don't know. Like, was it that hard of a play to make there?
I'm so glad you said this, because I was listening on the radio when that happened, and like Atterbury was like just super excited about it and everything. And then I go back and I watch the replay and I'm like, I don't know. I feel like that's where everyone on earth would have stood. Like, that looked like that's where the ball was going to go. So I'm glad you said it, and I'm not the only Debbie Downer here. I wasn't that impressed.
But Kepler was excited about it. A lot of fans. Anyway,
I mean, whenever you throw a guy out, that is a great play. Like, from the
Absolutely.
outfield. Like, we can acknowledge that. But I don't think we need to be worshiping the guy for his right field skills that no one else on earth could have done.
We'll talk more about the top of the 7th a little bit later. The Twins do get the outs from there. They win that game. They stretch the streak to 12 games. And then we go to game 3 that has a very different feel. The Twins lose this one 9-2. The streak comes really crashing down. But I think one of the key moments was the bottom of the 2nd, because the Twins load the bases with nobody out. And it's scoreless at this point. But then Castro strikes out, Santana strikes out, Miranda grounds out. It was a wasted opportunity. And then at that point, it seemed like Rocco kind of stopped managing.
Yeah, getting those 3 singles in a row and then not being able to push a run across, that's what happened to them before this streak. This game just kind of had that feeling, and it's easy to say this in hindsight, obviously, but this game just kind of had this feeling after that, maybe the sausage luck is running out a little bit.
And it did. The Twins, actually, they get one in the 3rd on a Jeffers home run. He's been, again, so good this season.
That picture of him catching the sausage that the Twins posted on Twitter, if you haven't looked that up, folks, it's fantastic. Like, Do Young Park was joking that the Twins have their new Jumpman logo because he kind of looks like MJ with how he was catching it. Definitely not as high up, like the Google phone where you can like put the guy like 13 feet higher in the air. The Twins might need to do that, but it was pretty cool.
Well, the Red Sox tie it in the 4th. They add a couple in the 5th. And, the Twins have their chances from there, but then it really falls apart in the top of the 8th. Funderburk was left in here, I think, far too long.
Why though? Like, I was there no one else? Like, it was such a weird decision. Like you said, was Rocco just done? He was like, we're down 3-1. This game's over.
The inning gets weirder too after that because Margot loses a ball in the sun in left field, even though he made a catch later in the inning in kind of the same spot that seemed to have no issues. So we will get more into that later, but that is obviously a really costly spot. It becomes 7-1 at that point. Now the Twins are able to get one run back in the bottom of the eighth on a Larnach RBI single, but then a couple more runs in the ninth for the Sox. And it didn't feel like the Twins were competitive, but they could have been. Like, put in a different reliever there.
Yeah, I mean, the final score is misleading. Like, 9-2, but it was 3-1 going into the eighth. So, I mean, it's just, it's disappointing to see the game end like that. You want to see them put up more of a fight. And I don't know, it's a little bit of an anticlimactic moment to lose the streak like that, too, on a game where you just kind of get blown out at the end of the game.
Well, there are many more moments here that we will talk about in the segment, so let's get on here to Puckett's Picks winner.
Catch 'em all, Kirby Puckett!
Puckett's Picks winner.
Hoges, I don't like it when David wins and he's not here, like, because I can hear his cackling, his clapping in the background here, but he does get the victory with Kepler. He has 11 points. It's actually the team high, so he also gets the bonus half point. The listeners took Jeffers. They had 8. I took Castro with 4. You took Larnach with 1, who just didn't have the series we hoped he was going to have.
No, not at all. And I'm trying to look at this a little bit like glass half full, because it's annoying, David, that he's not on here to talk about his favorite baseball player winning. So that's giving me like a little bit of happiness. But yeah, picking Kepler, getting the highest amount of points, and winning Puckett's Picks all at once. Well done, David.
You still have the season lead, though, with 4.5. David is in second with 3.5. He hopped past me. I have 2.5, and the listeners have 2. They're still looking for their first half-point bonus. But let's push forward here to our next segment.
Beast versus Bench.
Is losing fun? Is losing fun?
I'm going to pick a pitcher. Hoges, I'm going to go with Chris Paddock, the sheriff, for his Game 1 start. 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 walk, no runs, 6 strikeouts. His ERA is down now to 4.78. It was about double that after his first couple starts. This is encouraging, especially for a guy who you're worried that he's going to weaken rather than strengthen, but it looks like he's getting better.
I still greatly dislike you guys picking pitchers. I don't like, I mean, the guy pitched in 6 innings out of the entire series. However, this game I think was super important. The Twins only had a 1-run lead going into the 7th, so it wasn't even like it was garbage time where Rocco just kind of was like, you know what, we're going to keep you in there and see what happens. So this was a real game, and he's shining right now, and it's very encouraging to see.
Neither of us is going to go with Kepler, who did have a great series, but Hoges, who did you go with?
I couldn't do it. Like I there's something about it. I just couldn't do it. I went with Jeffers. He had another fantastic series. He had a double and a couple ribbies in Game 1. He had another double in Game 2, and then he hit the homer today. The guy is reliable too. Like, he's hot right now, but he's also getting hits in every single game. Again, I'm going to stress his leadership with the sausage and all of that. And that Jumpman picture was still pretty sweet. I think that earns a couple extra beast points for me this week.
As for the bench, I'm going with Kyle Farmer. Now, Kyle Farmer didn't have a demonstrably bad series. He just was almost a non-factor. He didn't start any of these games. He went 1 for 4. I think he had 2 at-bats in the first game, and then he pinch hit in the next couple. I don't know. Like, if he's not going to play against lefties, like, what good is Kyle Farmer to this team right now?
It is really frustrating, too, when you think about this was a guy that they probably didn't have to keep, too, and they ended up spending $6 million on him, which, as we've seen this year, that money is pretty important just with what they were able to fill with the rest of this roster. I don't know. It's getting late. Like, it's not April anymore, and he's not hitting at all, and he's not hitting when he needs to be in these pinch hit situations. I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, you have another guy who seems to appear in a lot of pinch hitting situations.
Well, it's the same situation. He didn't play much in Game 1 or Game 2, and then he pinch hit like way too early today, which we'll get to later for Kirilloff. No hits, the air out in left field. I think the 2 biggest question marks right now with the Twins are these 2 guys. Like, how long are they going to hold on to them if they're not producing? And like we've talked about before, Margot is less of an investment, really, because, I mean, no one knows what the Twins are actually paying him. It sounds like it's about $7, and the Rays and the Dodgers are paying the rest of it. But it's just frustrating when a guy like that isn't producing when they brought him on specifically for those situations.
If you're not really willing to pay the guy a lot of money, then can't you easily cut bait with him and say, like, because it's not like the Joey Gallo contract where they invested the $12 million or something like that. This is a guy where it's like, well, we don't really have that much on the books anyway. Why keep him around when you have clearly, again, demonstrably better options you would think at AAA?
There are. And I mean, not that Wallner did great when he was up here, but I think he's hit a homer in 3 straight games now down there. So maybe he's warming up a little bit. I don't know. Do you think that we will go the whole year with Margot and Farmer staying on the team, or do you think the Twins do have the stones to cut weight with one of those guys?
I mean, we thought last year that there was no way that Joey Gallo would stick around. I think what we're waiting for is for one of them to get hurt, and then for that injury to linger, kind of in a, because that's what the Twins have done with a guy like Sano as well. They don't really want to cut him, but they don't really want to use him, and yet here they are.
You got to think when Brooks Lee and Royce Lewis get healthy that this conversation becomes a little bit more hot.
Well, that's a great point. Well, we have more here with this in the rewind.
Rocco's Rewind.
So to keep going with that, in Game 3, bottom 5, so Rocco turns to Manny Margot here in a pinch hitting situation instead of Alex Kirilloff. This is too early, right? It doesn't work there. And I don't mind if you're going to pinch hit a guy for one at bat. But if you know that this spot in the order is going to come up again, you can't. The fifth inning is just too early to make that decision because invariably the matchup is going to come around later. Now, Rocco has said in the past that it's kind of a bird in the hand situation where it's the situation that, you want to get the hit in the key spot, so you're going to kind of sacrifice later, but you're behind and you're putting Kirilloff on the bench. He did a similar thing a couple innings later where you have Eddie Julian getting pinch hit for Kyle Farmer. So you have your two bottom guys that you're not willing to start in any games, but you're willing actually to bring them into high leverage situations. Like Kirilloff could get a hit against the lefty just as much as Margot could right now. It does not make long-term sense to me to make those decisions.
And they have righties in their bullpen. Like Boston still has righties in their bullpen, so they can switch on you later. The part that's most frustrating to me about this is Margot got 3 at-bats and Kirilloff got 2 at-bats. So what are you doing? I get that the bird in hand thing where you want it, if you have an opportunity, you take it right away. But there's 2 more opportunities that happen after that. You have to think about that when you're doing the calculus of this situation. But as we've learned, maybe Rocco just doesn't think about that.
No, it's like he didn't. Exactly. He's looking for a moment where he can make some kind of a decision.
Hang on a minute. We could use a pinch.
And then he just instinctively does it. And yet here we have your critique, which seems to then be it's like praising him for not doing the thing that we're talking about him doing.
This one was going to be my Rocco's Rewind the second it happened. So I'm sticking with it, but it's more of an anger now than it was actually a praise when I first had it in there. I'm going with him keeping Kepler in for the lefty when he hit the home run. It seems like he's getting a lot less cute with Kepler, and we talked about that on the last podcast, how it seems to be helping Kepler out, and that was another great example of it. But then he goes around and he does the same things to 2 good hitters with Kirilloff and Julian.
Oh, Canada.
And I don't understand it. It's like a dartboard now with what's going to happen with these pinch hitters. And maybe he talks more to the actual guys in the lineup. Maybe it's more with the pitching matchups that they're dealing with. But it just seems like, especially in Game 3 today, he got a little bit too cute with it again, and the results were not there.
Yeah, if you're going to pinch hit for anybody in this game, let's see him pinch hit for Miranda.
I am not throwing away my shot.
Or Santana.
I'm not dead.
Somebody at the bottom of this lineup, not the top 2 guys. When you also talk about wanting to put guys at the top of the lineup because you want them to get more at-bats.
And guys that have power, too. Julian and Kirilloff can change the game with a swing. Like, I don't get it.
One last thing we should mention here. Apparently, Cole Sands is a high-leverage guy now. He came out and pitched the 9th in a save situation in Game 2, and he got the save. I'm pretty sure his previous 2 saves were the old man saves, where he was out there for 3 innings.
Yep.
So this was curious usage here. Do we make anything of this, or is this just a shortage of bullpen arms kind of thing?
No, I think we definitely do. I mean, his numbers are great right now. He's got a 2.93 ERA, and slowly, I mean, it wasn't like he just got thrown into the 9th in this last one. He's been pitching in these high leverage situations a little bit more lately, and especially with Brock Stewart hitting the IL with Buxton, there's going to be some opportunities for this, and he's got, behind Jackson Duran, he's got a definite spot there that he could fight for, and it seems like Rocco's putting him in there, which I love Rocco being reactive to how the bullpen arms are going.
Well, we have more to talk about bullpen arms here in the Minnesota Moments.
Minnesota Moment.
I'm going to look at Game 2 at the top of the 7th against your fantasy third baseman, Rafael Devers. So Okert comes in, and this is obviously a huge spot in this game. The Red Sox are behind, but, they got the bases loaded. They have probably their best hitter up, or one of their best hitters. And Okert gets the strikeout with a full count on an off-speed pitch that I think could have been called a strike. But you just never quite know with a crew that has Angel Hernandez on it, kind of what that strike zone is going to be. But this was a pivotal moment. This is the kind of moment where when the Twins are going good, when they're winning at this point, that was the 12th game in a row. These are the moments that go your way and the breaks that you need. And it was great to see Okert step up in a big spot.
Did you see that Okert was teasing Rocco after the game that he just wanted to get him excited sitting in the clubhouse a little bit? That's why he got the count full before he ended up striking him out. But I agree wholeheartedly with you. It just seemed like one of those things that this team was having happen to them during that 12-game winning streak.
What's your moment?
I've talked about it a lot already, but I'm going with Jeffers' home run. It felt like it summed up the series a lot because he still hit a home run, but it ended up being the last retirement of the sausage as they chucked him the sausage and he did the jump man. They said they've already thrown it away. They have more in the fridge, and it just feels a little bit like an end of an era. But 12 games for that Cloverdale tangy summer sausage, which I'll be honest, I may or may not be buying one this week just to kind of revel in the fact of what it did. But yeah, that was pretty sweet. I think it summed up the series well because that was the end. It was it. The Sox took over after that, and that 12-1.
This is my question, though. It's a sponsorship question. So if this sausage was initially sponsored by Cloverdale, and I get that it was Kyle Farmer, I don't know how it happened. Like maybe he just went into the deli and they gave him one just because, oh, Kyle Farmer, you're a nice guy. But like, can they do the switch to Sheboygan? Like,
I think they probably had to talk to Sheboygan and were like, we're sorry. Like, we're sorry. We don't know how it happened. And Sheboygan's probably like, well, you got 800 of them now in your fridge, and if we don't see those for the rest of the year, you guys are out of a deal.
Like, it's a bit of an embarrassment because I still think that it should be Kramarchuk sponsoring something. Here, it's a good Minnesota company, right?
Exactly.
Like, why are we going for them?
So, okay, I'm glad you brought this up too, because this is another thing that has bugged me forever. Sheboygan is in Wisconsin. So you have your team sponsored by a sausage company that's from Wisconsin. It just seems so weird. And interesting side note, I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Whenever we kick off, we yell Sheboygan. I don't know why, but like half the student section just goes, Sheboygan! I mean, it's a great word to yell, but...
Well, anyway, I hope that later on in the season we see a Kramarchuk's sausage getting its shot out there.
Maybe it's the pronunciation, or I don't know.
It is. I've struggled here to say it a few times, and I've been to Kramarchuk's many times. But yes, nobody can read that clearly. I guess that's the problem. Anyway, let's go on here to our Mauer's Musings.
I just don't know how it can get any better.
Mauer's Musings.
We should go back to before the series. There was an off day, and we were speculating what was going to be the case with Byron Buxton. So he goes on the injured list, but there's no structural damage in his knee. It's just sore. And Rocco was very upbeat about this development. And we still haven't heard a lot from Byron Buxton about it. We've kind of heard from other people. But all of it and all of the circumstances, this is stuff that we've just seen before with he just has a weak knee. And at some point, Hoges, this is how I'm going to phrase it. Do the Twins need to hand center field to somebody else, even as soon as next season?
Before I get to the answer, I think it's a little bit telling that we waited this long to talk about that injury, because I think neither of us wants to talk about it, because I don't know about you, but I don't know how trustworthy I am of the Twins. Like you said, like this always seems like it's the first domino to fall, where they're like, oh, it's just a 10-day stint and he'll be back. I don't believe that. And because of that, I think you're right. I think it is time that they need to turn to someone else in center field, because it's just not sustainable. And not to pile on the guy when he's hurt, but he hadn't been having that phenomenal of a year anyways. Again, it's early. He hasn't been playing center that much until this year. I'm giving him time. By no means am I giving up on the guy. Honestly, he's still probably my favorite baseball player and the most exciting guy in the Twins to watch outside of Royce Lewis. But it's concerning. They can't keep having this happen, especially when they don't really have a great backup this year. Hopefully, maybe Martin can take that spot, but I guess we'll see.
If you look at the top of the Twins prospects list, we've got Wally Jenkins at number 1. He's an outfielder. Emmanuel Rodriguez is number 3. Gabriel Gonzalez, those guys are probably, closer. So I think maybe we're going to see, somebody try out for that spot a little bit later in the season. But if Buxton is just going to be your DH and he's hitting the way that he is, that's not a solution either. It pains me, and maybe he's going to come back and he's going to have a great month. Like last April, he was the AL player of the month. So This guy has it in him. I just think at some point you have to say, look, we got to not count on him to be playing center field every day.
This is getting into the weeds a little bit too, but when Royce Lewis went down and then Correa went down for third base, for shortstop, they did not put Kyle Farmer there. They put Willie Castro there. So especially if they're using Castro at shortstop to spell Correa, it doesn't seem like maybe he's that center field option that they really want to go with if they want him there. And with Farmer not performing, there's a hole there. There definitely is.
Well, I think that's a good transition into your question.
So my question is, what team is this Minnesota Twins team? Is it the team that started the season off 7-13, or is it the team that went around and won 12 games right after that? And the Red Sox are a decent team. So I know we played the White Sox, the Angels, and then the White Sox again, but they played well against this Red Sox team. what are we going to get from here on out?
I think that we will get something about a 500 team for a while here. And I think then a healthy Royce Lewis is going to be the piece that pushes them over. Maybe a healthy Brooks Lee, who's able to help them down the road this season too. They're going to need some reinforcements because, like you pointed out, the spots for Margot and Farmer right now are just untenable. So either, I guess a couple things could happen. Either those guys have a little bit of a turnaround, kind of like Carlos Santana has had, and that kind of fills that gap. But that's still a pretty good test coming up in May here. So I think that they're going to play about 500 ball here for a while until they can get healthy. And then the hope is that these starting pitchers are legit and that they can be in a pennant race. Because I do think this is probably a playoff team. If I had to boil it down, I think they will make the playoffs in some capacity. But they're going to have a good fight here with the Royals and the Guardians here in the Central.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% there. I think the Central is for sure going to fall off a little bit. But with how awful that start was, we're 2.5 games back. And the Guardians and the Royals are playing better than they will play for the rest of the year. I'm pretty confident that the Guardians are not going to have the best or second best record in baseball throughout the course of this year. So, and we have to remember last year they were under 500 at the All-Star break. So right. If this team sticks around 500, like you said, until they get those guys back, I'll be feeling pretty good.
All right, well, let's go on here to series grades.
Series grades.
I wanted to go higher here, but just kind of getting beat down a little bit in the 8th and the 9th today, I ended up giving them a B. I think I probably could have gone B+ or even an A- because this is a good team and they won 2 out of 3. I think I'd probably look at it a little bit differently if it wasn't the end of a 12-game winning streak, but I'm going with a B.
Yeah, so with my metrics with Advanced Retreat, you still won a series against a good team. I think that's a 9 out of 10. With well-played baseball, I'm calling this a 7 out of 10. That Margot mistake in left field today was pretty bad. They had errors by Santana and Correa. They weren't great in the field, I would say. Now, some of that's made up for by the nice play by Kepler out and right. But I think the bottom line is, this wasn't their best baseball. They didn't have the big hit with a runner in scoring position here in Game 3, so some missed opportunities. But that's still, 7 out of 10 there. That's still 16 out of 20. That's still a B-. This is still a good series win. And now they got a good series coming up here against a pretty good Mariners team that can pitch. They lead the league or are close to the top in a lot of pitching metrics. So we'll see how this lineup holds up against them.
So do you actually lose the ability to watch them now coming up? Are you blacked
Ironically,
out
I
in
do.
Spokane?
Yeah, actually, I gotta find somebody who has Root Sports. That's the if Twins fans out in Minnesota, you can think of Bally Sports like Root Sports out here because that's basically how everybody out here feels about it. So all of those battles over rights,
they're all out there
yeah,
too.
They happen there too. Yeah,
we're not alone.
I don't know, Jack. It looked like Herbeck pulled him off the bag.
Herbie's headlines.
So excited to talk about this one. So Luis Arraez has been traded to the Padres, and one of my good friends out here is a big Padres fan, like the kind of fan that goes to Padres fantasy camp. I think he's been there maybe twice now. And Luis Arraez went 4 for 6 in his debut there. Now, he wasn't as good today, but I'm sorry, Brandon Warren, I saw you tweeted about this on Twitter, but let the Tony Gwynn comparisons begin. Let's let the Padres fans who have been front and center for both get a good look, and let's listen to what they have to say.
How do you not? How do you not bring up those comparisons? It's just so obvious. Granted, one of them is a Hall of Famer and did it forever and ever and ever. I'm not saying that Luis Arraez is there yet at all, but he's got that same style, and I think it's awesome. David, I'm sure, is happy about this because he's always talked about how he kind of roots for the dads as opposed to any other team other than the Twins. I'm happy about it. The Marlins are an awful team. It's nice to see him go to a team that at least has the potential to be a little bit better. So I'm excited that he's there. Did you see the minor league baseball game, though, where the guy that was on second ended up getting pulled because he was getting traded for Luis Arraez?
No, he was at second base and he got pulled? He
was at second base. He was running and he got pinch ran for, and the look on his face was like, what are you doing? I never get pinch run for. And he was just flabbergasted, and the coach had to literally walk out there and put his arm around him. I'm sure he just told him sorry buddy, this is not the way to do it, but you got traded.
Well, the Padres, they are 18 and 19 now, so they're in second place in the NL West behind the Dodgers.
But that's an easy division though now, right? Because the other teams are all under 500, right? We're just small sample sizing this right now. The NL West is washed up. The Dodgers are the only good team in it. The Diamondbacks are bad, the Giants are bad, and the Padres are bad, and the Central's the juggernauts in the AL.
It kind of is the AL Central. So here are the standings. The Guardians are 22 and 12. Twins are 19 and 14. The Royals lost today, so they're 20 and 15. Tigers 18 and 16. And I think we know why this division looks a little bit better. It's because they all get to play the White Sox, who are 8 and 26. All right, Hoges, we have a series to make some picks for here with the Mariners series coming up.
And we'll see you tomorrow night. Puckett's Picks.
per the usual rules here, the listeners go first. They're going to take Willie Castro. The person who picked for the listeners just kind of likes his overall play lately, and he has been. He's been one of the best hitters for the Twins over the last couple of weeks. So that puts you in the driver's seat for the next pick, Hoges.
I'm going with Mr. Reliable, and my beast of the week, I'm going with Ryan Jeffers. I think even with the sausage gone, I think he's still going to perform and do well this series.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Correa. Haven't picked him in a while.
I want to build a championship culture.
He looked better today. He's been taking, he takes walks. He just has good at-bats, and I think at some point here, that's going to pay off. That, of course, leaves Kepler to David, so he's going to take Kepler again and hopefully keep riding that hot streak. And again, we want the Twins to win. We just also want to win Puckett's picks as long as they are too.
Exactly. I 100% agree with it. And hey, that way David can take his flowers next week and talk about Kepler. Whether he has a good series or not, he can reference back to this series.
Well, Hoges, this has been really fun to do back-to-back episodes with you here. We're going to hear from you a lot more over the course of the season. So thank you for being here. I'm sorry, though, that the streak ended with you on the podcast. Are you the jinx?
I might be, but hey, I did one where they continued it, so we can't say that yet. We'll see what happens the next time I'm on. But always a pleasure, Dan. I appreciate talking baseball with you. It's a ton of fun. Let's hope they keep winning.
Well, folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on X at Min for the Win. You can find our Min for the Win Facebook page and Instagram page as well. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform so you're notified when new episodes are available. And if you could leave us a rating or a like, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show further, you can find us on Patreon. The link is in the description. And please do tell your friends about the podcast. Always nice to get some more subscribers. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Twins. That'll wrap up another episode of Min for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.